Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again. And today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we have two new cards bringing in the new Snap season, the Avengers vs. X-Men. And that is the Season Pass card, Hope Summers, as well as the first Series 5 release of the month in Pixie. Hope Summers is a 3/4 that reads after you play a card here, you get +1 energy next turn. And Pixie is a 2/1 that reads on reveal, shuffle the costs of all cards in your deck that started there. So yeah, definitely a interesting week to start off the month. Personally, I think Hope is a lot more exciting of a card than Pixie. Honestly, I don't think Pixie is very good, and that is probably for the best. I think this is very much a for fun kind of effect. In my opinion, it's probably going to be kind of a worse Mr. Negative a lot of the time. While trying to theory craft some builds for, I kind of found myself asking, why am I doing this over Mr. Negative? And while there is some cool potential high roll, I think that the downsides of how you have to build around this card and the fact that your deck really has a harder time functioning without it mean that it's probably not going to be too successful in terms of competitive viability. Summers, on the other hand, I think has a very strong chance of being good. Being able to essentially cheat some energy by getting bonus energy is really powerful. It's a decently statted 3-drop. Insert the "this goes in Silver Surfer" meme here. But yeah, it just seems like a pretty good Season Pass card overall, and I think it's going to find its way into a wide variety of decks. In terms of the Spotlight Cash Week, we have Pixie, Mobius, and Spider-Ham. So in general, I think that the cards here are pretty solid if you do not have them already. Pixie being the weakest of the bunch, Mobius and Spider-Ham are both pretty good cards, but they are also Series 4 cards, so they are cards you could pick up a little bit more easily for tokens, or maybe even get a little lucky and pull one out of the random slot in Spotlight Caches. So for that reason, I really don't think this is a big week to go in on, unless you're missing maybe all 3 of the cards and you really want to play with them. But yeah, there are some powerful cards coming up later on in the month, so if it were me, I would be saving my Spotlight keys for some of the more promising weeks later on in March. But yeah, those are the cards. Let's take a look at our day 1 decks. And we're going to be starting out with Pixie because honestly, in trying to theory craft for this card, I really wasn't super happy with the things I was putting together. Obviously, Mobius is going to be really core in Pixie decks as he helps mitigate the downside. Basically, you're using the Pixie effect to make your 5 and 6 cost cards cheaper, and then Mobius offsets the downside of having the other cards in your deck that got those costs not really have that downside and be able to play it for their normal cost. So the idea is we're running some 0 cost cards to get high roll and them switching with some of the high cost cards in Wasp and Yellow Jacket, our top end being Doom, She-Hulk, Magneto, as well as Darkhawk and Spider-Woman. We're also using Hope Summers in this deck to hopefully make things a little bit better if we do not happen to get Pixie, in being able to generate a bit more bonus energy so we can actually play some of these higher cost cards more easily. Running a mini Darkhawk package here, Korg is really the only thing that is enabling it. Darkhawk is naturally bigger now with its built-in power, so I think it can get away with that a little bit. He's kind of like a Devil Dino in a way now. Korg for a little bit of disruption, more so just because we want another 1-drop to swap with some of our more high cost threats. Sunspot's nice because we are running She-Hulk here, where She-Hulk, if she gets a reduction from Pixie, or you get some extra energy from Hope Summers, you can float, get her down for cheaper while still playing a bigger thing. I like Spider-Woman as another 5-drop threat. I think this card's kind of underrated. Really nice that she dodges Shang and is often more than 10 power for a 5-drop when you're factoring in the negative affliction she provides on the enemy cards. It's very much a high roll deck, but it does have a decent kind of core to it where I think it will still function even in those games where you don't happen to drop Pixie on 2 when you want her. The other stuff I tried brewing with this card I really wasn't happy with, so this is going to be my main deck for Pixie. I'd love to hear if you have ideas in the comments, but when trying to brew decks for this card, I really felt that there just wasn't a lot of value in trying to swap the cost arounds on high cost cards, as there really aren't a whole ton of high cost cards you want to be running. I think we have some of the best ones in the game here in Doom, She-Hulk, and Magneto, as well as our 5-drops. I think if you really want to go in on a high roll style of deck like this, you're probably just better off playing Mr. Negative, as I think it has much more appealing options for the effect compared to Pixie, who can low roll and she can swap the same costs around, so your 6 cost might just swap with another 6 cost. It's totally random, which I think is a pretty big downside to the card. and why I don't expect it to see a whole ton of play, at least on the competitive side. But it does seem fun, so if you want to mess around with the effect, this is the deck I'd be doing it with. Next up is Hope, and I have a lot more hope for this card. I think this card actually has some pretty decent potential. Starting off with some Silver Surfer shenanigans. I think Silver Surfer seems like a fairly solid deck to make use of this card. It's a well-statted 3-drop. It helps you ramp. The main thing is we are going to be using this card to get at least 1 excess energy on turn 5, which is really big for Surfer because that allows us to play 2 3-drops on turn 5, as well as 2 3-drops on turn 6 without the aid of Sarah. So that's pretty nice. For including Snowguard here, it's just another thing we can weave into the curve. 1-drops I think are very valuable in a Hope Summers deck, as on turn 4 it allows you to play a 1-drop into the Hope Summers lane, or just your 3-drop while developing another card. It also gives us more cards to hand, and helps us deal against magic combo decks by being able to shut off their turn 7. Other than that, we are running some discard cards here in Lady Sif and Swordmaster. You want to be playing them towards the end of the game, where you still get value out of them even if Proxima isn't around, but you can discard Proxima pretty consistently the way this deck is built, and it turns out getting some decently statted 3-drops for Surfer that enable us getting a free 0/7 onto the board is pretty good. And then if you don't want to go the discard route with Surfer, we do have a little bit more of a traditional list here using the Storm Juggernaut stuff, along with a lot of the core pieces like Brood, Sebastian Shaw, Gladiator, Killmonger. I do think Nova gets a bit better in Silver Surfer with this. One of the big issues with Nova in the past has been you want to be just playing your 3-drops out. Even when we had Sarah, it still limited the amount of 3-drops we could play, whereas with Hope Summers, it can get us that extra energy. So on turn 6, we can actually play the Nova alongside 2 3-drops, which I think will make it quite a bit better. And we have an Iron Patriot style deck. So I've always really liked these decks. They've been in and out of the metagame for a while. It does run Silver Surfer, but very much not a Surfer deck. It just uses Surfer for some more bonus points on your Brood or your copies with Absorbing Man or Iron Lad. Hope Summers I think is pretty solid in this deck, as being able to ramp out more of your cards seems pretty good. It gives some more synergy with Surfer, and we do have Wasps, so that enables us to play Hope on turn 3, Wasp on the same turn, and then ramp out one of our powerful 5-drops early, like Iron Man or Blue Marvel. You could also consider another finisher in this deck like Alioth. I opted to go for this version, which I think is a bit more points heavy, but if you find yourself leading priority most of the time, that could be another valid option as a way to close out the game. Then we have a bounce deck, so hopefully Hope enables bounce to return a little bit to its former glory. Kitty Pryde obviously has very good synergy with Hope, giving you something cheap that you can play each turn and get that extra energy effect. We have a lot of value 1-drops that we want to be playing and rebouncing to hand, like the Hood, Hawkeye, Iceman, and Nico. We have the Hitmonkey Mysterio combo for a lot of points on the final turn, and with Black Swan and Hope, we have more ways of playing out more cards alongside Hitmonkey so we can get the biggest monkey possible. Beast and Falcon get us more value out of our 1-drops by returning them to our hand, and Cull Obsidian because we're running a bunch of 1-drops and he's just a nice big threat to help get some points on the board. Another interesting way to go is with the Elsa Kitty Angela package. This package has seen better days, but I think we're going to be getting an Elsa buff in the not too distant future based on prior comments, so I figured this is a good way to try it out until we hopefully get that buff in the next patch, which is scheduled for the 12th of March. But the idea with this one is we just have a lot of ways to proc Hope, and we have some good ramp targets here. It's kind of like a move list, but it's not all in on the move stuff. We do run a decent amount of move cards, but not a whole lot of payoff for that synergy. We're more so just running them because they are very effective bodies for the cost. Nightcrawler, Jeff, Kitty allow us to proc Hope Summers while being able to re-proc the effect more times. We have some good things to ramp into, like Spider-Woman, Vision, Alioth, and Dr. Doom. Miles is just efficient stats for cost with our move effects, and Miss Marvel is very good with Doom, helping spread our power around across the board. And the last deck of the bunch is a more dedicated move one. I've always been a big enjoyer of these move style decks, and I do think Hope Summers helps accomplish something here, which is allowing us to run a little bit higher end of a curve with multiple 6-drops. One thing I've really liked with this style of deck, but that's been hard to pull off in the past, is getting enough energy to be able to play Kingpin and Magneto on the final turn of the game, but I do think it's possible we might be able to do that more often with Hope, and I think it can very much take the opponent by surprise for a lot of cubes. Other than that, the core here is very similar to move decks in the past. We just have a lot of ways to move our stuff around the board and our opponent's stuff with things like Arrow, Spider-Man, Polaris, and we have our big closers in Doctor Doom and Magneto just to get some points on the board or disrupt the positioning of the opponent. And that is going to wrap it up for our day one decks for Pixie and Hope Summers. Let me know what you think of these decks and cards in the comments below. As always, links will be in the description if you want to copy any of the decks to import into the game for yourself. But it's going to wrap it up for this one. I'll be streaming the new season today, so if you want to see some of these decks in action, definitely check out my link in the description over to Twitch. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.